Everyone wants to live an inspired life, yet so many people search for happiness following the footsteps of peers and taking advice from people who have different values and outcomes to which they're searching. There are people born into wealth, graduated from the best universities in the world, and there are people who have none of that and yet are living extraordinary lives full of fulfillment and reward. The purpose of this podcast is to share insights and strategies that allow you to question the status quo and think freely, so you can design your life and be who you want to be. We get one life. Time is our most valuable asset. I believe that when we're free and able to focus on meaningful work, we become better human beings. This is Always Free, and I'm your host, Jason Graystone.
Welcome to the leading podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with Jason on social media and subscribe to the Jason Graystone YouTube channel for weekly videos. Don't forget to also subscribe to the weekly newsletter to receive frequent educational content and action steps to help you design your life so you can be who you want to be. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, guys. I hope you're doing well. This is the number one podcast for financial empowerment and wealth creation. If you're listening for the first time, this podcast actually span off of a newsletter that I write each and every Sunday. And I did that for an entire year. And because of the information shared in that newsletter, there was demand for a podcast. And that's why the Always Free podcast came about. And the reason I mentioned the newsletter is because it's back this week. It took a little break when we got to episode 52, and now it's back this Sunday. So if you want to receive that newsletter, make sure you go over to www.jasongraystone.com and you'll be asked to fill in your name and email, and you'll receive that newsletter each and every Sunday. So if you want to read on your Sunday as well as listen to these podcasts and take in more and more information, there's lots of cool diagrams and charts and information in that newsletter that you can't quite visualize in the form of a podcast. So be sure to register for that. And I hope you all had a nice Christmas and a new year, because this is the first episode of Always Free back in 2020. So before the Christmas, we did a couple of episodes mentioning goal setting and how to efficiently plan for the new year, but not only the new year, the new decade. So as we enter 2020, or the roaring 20s, you would be set up and ready to action all of your new habits and smash through your goals in 2020. So what I thought would be really, really cool to do in this episode, as it's the first episode back in the new decade, is kind of talk you through the process of how I approach a new year, because it's not just about goal setting. In fact, over Christmas, what I do is I spend some time reviewing the previous year. And I kind of like to think of it as a slingshot, because what people neglect to realize is it's one thing to set goals, okay, but what goals require is a lot of motivation. And people usually set a load of goals that require motivation, which means that they're setting goals that aren't really aligned with what they particularly really are driven to do, or they just feel a lack of motivation because they're trying something before, or they've got lots to do and it's a bit overwhelming and they don't really know where to start, so they end up not starting at all. So the way I like to think of it is as a slingshot. Part of smashing through goals is the reviewing the past, or if you imagine if you was holding a slingshot and you just didn't pull the slingshot back and you just let go of the thing, it would just drop, right? Whereas if you put the ammo in the slingshot and you pull the slingshot back and give it a nice good stretch, then you let go, then it's gonna excel. It's gonna fly through the air and it's gonna get much further. And a bit of the same as a trampoline. If you was just to stand flat on a trampoline and jump, you're not going to jump nowhere near as high as if you push your weight down on the trampoline first, then jump, you're going to jump much higher. So I kind of see reviewing the previous year as that pullback. It's kind of a reload of the gun before firing into the next year. And I've got a process in which I follow in order to do that. So when I open my new journal on every new year, the first page is filled with achievements from the previous year. And the reason I do that is because it really helps to build encouragement, build momentum, and you have more gratitude and you're more appreciative of what you've actually done, which then inspires you to do more. Because when you can see it like that, you realize actually how much you have achieved in a year, and it gives you encouragement to kind of smash next year and do even more. So I want to kind of talk you through my little step-by-step guide on how I approach the new year and the process that I go through, and hopefully it will help you, and I'll give you some little tips and tricks along the way. So it isn't just about setting goals for me. First things first, it's about a review. And I do lots of types of review. I do a self-review, I do an efficiency review of my week, and I do many reviews throughout the year. But the first thing I like to do is write down all of the achievements in the year. So this can be any little achievement. And what I find helps is if you go through your camera roll and your diary entries and your emails and if you're not keeping an active journal, which I recommend you do going into this year, so you can just kind of refer back. But if you haven't kept a journal, just go through your camera roll on your phone, your pictures, your diary, your emails, your messages, and just kind of see what you was up to from January up to today. And these can be little things. So I'll read you the things that I wrote down just so you can kind of get the ideas of, right, yeah, I didn't think of that as a goal. I didn't think of that as an achievement, and really kind of show you what I wrote down for 2019. So some of the things I did was I formed some great partnerships, not only in business, but in my personal life as well. I hosted an emergent trading event for 120 traders in January. I spoke on a main stage at the London Forex Show. I completed a Entrepreneurs Accelerator program as part of my self-development. I completed an asset creation program. I launched this podcast, okay, and that went to number 1 on iTunes in 3 categories. I created and hosted a 300 trader event called the Trader Vault, which has now gone on to become even bigger, and we're going to be doing that again this year in Amsterdam. I hosted a charity party for 70 entrepreneurs and raised £18,000 for charity. I hit 42,000 subscribers on YouTube, 16k on Instagram, so that's a social leadership achievement. I learned how to ride a motorbike and got my full license. I interviewed Dr. DeMartini for this podcast. I did the breakthrough experience again with my wife, with DeMartini. I celebrated 10 years of marriage in Ibiza. I launched my new Tears of Freedom program, which was a great success. I was invited to speak at a Traders for Cause event in Las Vegas among some phenomenal traders. I spoke to 100 police officers over 2019 about wealth. I taught my son some homeschooling and how to enhance his social skills. I swam with turtles in the Maldives. I met some mentors. I co-wrote some best-selling books on leadership. I was invited onto several podcasts. I reached over 70,000 people with my podcast and newsletter. I had a 78% strike rate in my trading with a 32% return on investment. I hosted a trader event in Dublin. I purchased a Yamaha R6 sports motorbike. 2.5 years meat-free, so I haven't eaten meat for 2.5 years. I provided 1,800 e-learning day access for children in India, because everyone that enrolls into my Tears of Freedom program provides 30 days of an access to an e-learning program for a child in India. And also everyone that buys the program means that we can clear 5 kilograms of plastic from Indonesian beaches. So we also cleared 500 kilograms of plastic from Indonesian beaches. I also moved house. I became even more financially free, and I built stronger relationships with my wife and some of my other family members, and I read 36 books. So although that was a quick list of kind of making me sound a bit big-headed because you're seeing it as me kind of telling you what I did, for me that was just achievements in the previous year, but hopefully you got some ideas on how kind of detailed and how not detailed I went into in just writing down that list. Now, once you've done that, that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do is write down a list of disappointments. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of mine, and I'm going to go through all of these kind of what I do and how I do it, but I'm not going to I'm not going to show you every single list. But the next list is a list of disappointments. What disappointed you? Okay, what did you think? Oh, well, that wasn't really what I expected. It didn't meet my expectations. That person disappointed me. That process disappointed me. Something about that event disappointed me, or that holiday, or whatever disappointed you, and try and write down why it disappointed you as well. So that's the next thing I do. What's really cool about writing down the disappointments is because usually if you do it for a few years, you find that there's common themes, and it's normally what you're passionate about. It's the passion, okay? The things that frustrate you. And normally, after you've been writing down what disappointed you for a few years, you'll look at it and you'll go, wow, or it might even be the list that you've written down right now. Those things might have a common theme, and you think, wow, that's the problem I'm going to solve. Okay, so it could help in your business, and it could help in later on in this list, which I'm going to explain in a minute. And then the next thing I write down is what I learned. Okay, so a little bit different from achievements, and some of them will double up, but what did you learn? And a great way to look at this is to basically think about, what did you find hard 12 months ago that you now find relatively easy? Or what didn't you know 12 months ago that you know now? And this can be, again, about people, psychology, technicals. It could be about you've learned a new skill. It could be a vocational learning. It could be any kind of wisdom. So what did you learn? What specifically did you learn in 2018 that raised your consciousness, raised your awareness, and kind of now you're thinking, that won't get to me again because I already know it. So that's the next thing I write down. And then the next thing I write down is, what limits or excuses did I have? So for me personally, there were some times last year where I had some excuses about training, fitness, okay? So that's high on my values this year. That's been notched up on the goals, and fitness slipped. So there were some excuses that I had about, but I've got to get this thing done, or I've got to get tired done. And I know full well that I don't run out of time because my whole diary is structured. So I know that I've always got time to do the things that I want to do. But I would find myself creating an excuse. But I don't create many excuses. If you did, write them down. What was limiting you? What excuses did you come up with? What did you feel like wasn't possible? Okay, write all those down and create a big list of them. Next thing I do is write what I can do to overcome them. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, that one of your excuses was the fitness. Okay, you couldn't go to the gym because you finished too late at work or whatever it might be. Well, how can you finish work a bit earlier? How can you plan your day so that it's seamless? And how can you make it very, very hard to fail and easy to succeed? If it was a case of eating the right foods or eating healthy salads, and you had an excuse that, you had to prep all the food and you didn't have time to prep the food, go and buy some packaged salads and just have those for the first few weeks, just to build the momentum of getting you some results. So what can you do to overcome the limits and the excuses that you had? Next thing I write down is, what did the limits cost me? So this is a really powerful one. What did the limits cost me? So you could say, let's just say if you're learning to trade, right? And you've took a bad trade. Let's just say that you shouldn't be trading live, and you took a live trade and it wasn't based off of a plan. It was just a mental, emotional trade that you took. Okay, you would initially see that as a loss. Okay, now when I talk about what did it cost me, this could be a positive or negative number. Okay, so when I say positive, if you was to take the losing trade and you lost, I don't know, £500, you could say, well, I lost £500 and the £500 gone, but what did you learn from that that's going to stop you from doing it again? And then how much would that earn you in the long run? Okay, so that's one way of looking at what it costs you. But when we're talking about limits, what did the limits cost me? Let's just say that you didn't follow through with something. Okay, so let's just say that you didn't follow through with your trading and you didn't even bother. You bought a program, you didn't learn, or you went into Tears of Freedom and you didn't bother looking at the modules. You know, what did that cost you? Because it's not really just the cost of what you've paid for the thing, it's the cost of your future. And you can compound that over time and really get some tangible numbers on what that might cost you. Okay, I was doing some figures today, and just by, if I wasn't, let's just say that I stopped doing this podcast. Okay, if I stopped doing this podcast, it would fizzle out. Okay, and the messages that I'm trying to get through to people would fizzle out eventually. Whereas if I was to share this with one person every month, and that person was to share it with 5 people, and out of those 5 people, only one person shared it with another 5 people, and then out of those 5 people, only one person shared it with another 5 people, and that went on for months and months and months and months and months. By the end of the year, okay, I might have about 60,000 people that it reached, okay? That's the compounding effect. But when you talk about generations, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of people would be reached if that carries on. So then you can start to work out, if let's just say that you've got a podcast or you're trying to get your message out there and you've got a business, there's a conversion rate laying in the background of how many people will share and how many people will convert. And if you're selling a product for £100 and you're getting a conversion rate of 1 person in 5, and out of that you're getting a 50% profit margin or what have you, you can start putting some numbers to those. And any limits and excuses that you had for not going out and doing a podcast or not speaking to the world and getting your message out there, that's what it's cost you. So I like to write a list of little things like that of what it cost me. It can be in health, it can be in relationships, it can be in business, it can be in wealth building, it can be in anything, fitness, everything. So once you've done that, the next thing I write down are my top values. Now, I try and write my top 5, okay, because they change slightly every year. Now, I've had the same top 3 since I can remember, all right? But the 4 and 5 seem to shift around and they slightly change. You want to write at least your top 3. And if you don't know what these are, go back to the podcast episode where I talk about what you have on your physical space the most, what you spend your most time doing the most. Go back and listen to the Purpose podcast I did just shortly after the D Martini podcast. So top 5 values, what are they? Write them down. Next thing I do is I ask myself, what problems do I want to resolve in 2019? So I write a list of these things of problems I want to solve. So that could be problems in the world, that could be problems in education, problems in products and services, and problems in business, problems in my family, problems in my health and fitness. So what problems do you want to solve? You know, what's really an itch you want to scratch? You know, is it animals? Is it veganism? Is it to do with a system in your business that isn't working and you just really want to solve the problem? Is it to do with a relationship that you've got? So write down what problems you really want to solve in 2020. Next question I write the answer to in my journal is, what is the one problem that I want to leave behind? Okay, so there's going to be some things in your life that are not efficient to keep trying to tackle. Okay, things you can't control, and something that's been getting at you, something that you just keep going, damn that thing, right? Something that really gets your back up that you can't control, and it's been a running thread through your life for the last God knows however long, for the last few years, and you just want to leave it behind. What is that one thing that you're just gonna, you know what, I'm not gonna disperse my energy on that. I'm a friend that always has someone, I'm always the shoulder to cry on for that friend. They always come round and put it on me. They never listen to me. They just put all their stuff on me. Let them go, right? If you've given them a chance, get rid. If you've got someone who's just sucking your energy, or some kind of situation that's sucking your energy, that frustrates you but you can't control and it's a problem, get rid of it. Let it go. So try and come up with a good one for that. The next two questions are similar, and one is for achievements and gratitude, and one's for goals in the future. So the first question is something that I got better at, okay, in terms of a skill or in terms of a relationship or communication or a job or trading, whatever it might be, something that you actually got better at. Was it just timekeeping? Was it structuring your diary? Was it, communications with your kids at dinner? What did you get better at? And then what are you going to get better at? So something you're going to get better at. And I'm not talking about let's just say you're a golfer and golf's your main focus and you're just continuously getting better at golf. Yes, you might have that on there. I'm talking about more things that are more kind of habitual, where you've got a daily habit that you can just tweak slightly and get better at. So next I write down all the kind of goals that I have in all areas of life. So wealth and finance, wisdom and knowledge, and my business and social so I basically go through my goal setting procedure, which I went through in the last podcast, and I do that for all areas of life and just set my goals. Okay, so and then once I've done that, I set up some habits, as I just mentioned, and then I go on to the next phase of basically writing activities and experiences. So what activities do I want to try? And what do I want to experience? Okay, writing this out is, and breaking it down this way, it's not so much a goal that's hidden in the background. You're actually writing down what activities do you want to try and what do you want to experience. Just write them down, because one of our members in our Tears of Freedom group, Seb, over Christmas, he was asking questions to the family about what they would love to do in life if money wasn't an object and all the rest of it, right? And he said that the amount of people who had been together like 20 years, 25, 30 years, and the answers they were coming up with, they would look at each other and go, I had no idea you wanted to do that. So, people don't write this stuff down, so it just gets lost in the background. And I highly recommend that you spend the time just writing down activities that you want to try and experiences you want to have. And even if you don't experience them or achieve them this year, well, then it can be on the things for last year. You might have some excuses as to why you didn't do them, but write them down, and then they're there, and then you know that they're there, so you can work towards having them and doing them. So the next thing is gratitude and affirmations. Okay, so I spend a little bit of time writing down, not too many, 5 to 10 things that either I am, I can, or I have. So this is where you're grateful for kind of what you are, okay, what you can do, and what you have in your life, okay, or what you have achieved. So spend some time writing 2 to 3 things on each of those. So I am something, and then I can something, okay, I have something. So it might just be that you're healthy. It might be that you have a loving family, right? It might be that you spend every day choosing what you want to do every day. It might be that you don't worry about the finances anymore. So spend some time writing down that. Again, it's I am, I can, I have, and write 2 to 3 things for each. The next thing is kindness, okay? So every year I dedicate a certain amount of time to kindness. Now this is charity, this is family, and it's just giving, basically. So last year I read through some of mine that I'd already done, but I spend some time just writing about 3 to 5 things on ways that I can show kindness in 2020. So getting ready for the year, just write down 5 things. It can be big or small, little or large, things you can do to show kindness in 2020. It might just be a little phone call. It might be to give someone a gift or give someone a bit of money, or whatever it might be. Go and help a charity, whatever that might be. Go and do that, right? Go and write that down. So 3 to 5 things on 5 ways you can show kindness in 2020. Next thing is the big mission, right? Get clear with the big mission. Why are you here? What are you doing? What is it you are here for? What are you working on? What is the mission? Okay? Is it to and the way you can kind of really root deep in that is ask yourself, how can you help the world? How do you want to help the world? How do you want to contribute? What do you want to contribute towards? What does the world look like for you? What is your mission? Is it animal welfare? Is it planet welfare? What is it for you? And don't just, this is where it's really difficult to not come up with social idealisms. Things that you think people would want to say has to come from you, okay? What you naturally feel driven to do and what your mission is in life. Once I've done that, the next thing's a bucket list. So the bucket list kind of just evolves each year, and some things get ticked off and some things don't. So it kind of just rolls over. But you want to start, if you haven't got a bucket list, write with 5 to 10 things that you stick on a bucket list, and these are just things you want to do before you die. Okay, so great way to look at this is you're on your deathbed, you look back and what is it that you wanted to do or experience throughout your whole life? So I'm not talking about it is kind of the activities and the experiences, but these can be anything, okay? And this can be over your whole lifetime. You're not just looking into the next 12 months, you're looking over the entire life. So if you've got a life expectancy of 100 and you're 30, you've got 70 years left, what do you want to do in 70 years? What are the things you want to tick off in 70 years? Next thing is we write a word of the year. So what's the word or the phrase of the year? Okay, you can have a sentence, it can be a quote, it can be a word, it can be, something like compassion, it can be something like transparency, contribution, it can be openness, okay? Or it can be a quote that you live by, do your future self a favor, something like that. But have a little quote that you have up for the year and pin it up in your house. You can get it made up in a cool little plaque. Put it in your office, put it in the hallway, whatever it might be, stick it up in the house. And if it's unique to you and not necessarily your family, you don't want it in the house, the next thing to do is create a family motto. Okay, so get your family together, get them in a room and kind of figure out what the motto of the family is. There'll be a theme that runs through your family that you could create a motto for. So another thing is you can create a family motto. Next thing I write are the 3 biggest projects. So this is part of my goal planning process, but big projects, okay? So that could be a wedding. It could be some kind of educational program that you're doing. It could be starting a business, building a guitar, right? It could be something off your bucket list that's a big project for you now. So write down the 3 big projects that you want to work on next. And again, it doesn't matter if it rolls over into the next year, but try and get 3 big projects on there. So once you've done all that, hopefully once you read it back, you'll have a newfound energy to go into 2020, and you'll see how much you've already achieved, how much you've still got left to do. You'll get excited about how you're going to help the world. You'll get excited about how you're going to give kindness. You'll have a bucket list to tick through. You'll have a bit of relief because you're letting things go that you can't control anymore. You'll know your values, okay? You'll know how to be more efficient and what limits to overcome and how to overcome them. And it will really give you fuel to go into 2020 and smash through your goals. If you're just setting goals, firstly, you need to plan them to achieve them. Whatever we plan, we get. But secondly, use this process as a bit of a slingshot, okay, to propel you and shoot you into 2020 and hit the ground running. So that's it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it around. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. And I would love it if you went over and gave it a little rating and review on iTunes. And until next week, have a great rest of your day and weekend, and I'll see you then.
Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. For news on all future events and updates, go to jasongraystone.com.